Welcome back to Ask the Compound. After our 4th of July hiatus, we are back. As you can see from my attire, I'm still in the 4th of July mood here, Duncan. askthecompoundshow at gmail.com. It's our email. We got a bunch of good emails. Today's show, we're going to be covering questions about how much you need to save for retirement, how to make some money from a side hustle, planning for a complex housing swap to be closer to school, some tips for an experienced stockbroker or picker, and when you can stop saving for retirement if you oversaved as a young person. All right, today's show is sponsored by Public. We get a lot of questions from our audience about cash management. Yields are higher. Where should I put my money? Public.com. You can earn 5.1% APY with a high-yield cash account, plus no fees at all, so you can maximize your interest. Straight up, no strings attached, no balance requirements either, so you can deposit as little or as much as you want. Plus, at Public, $5 million of FDIC insurance. Not bad. Remember, this is a paid endorsement for public investing, 5.1 APY as of June 17th, 2024, and is subject to change. Full disclosures in the podcast description. Pretty good deal.
Also, everyone should check out, there's a recent Public podcast featuring Kyla Scanlon having Callie Cox on. It was really good. Go check it out.
Very nice. All right. Every once in a while, people who ask questions give us updates. We got a good one from Andrew. Andrew wrote in 2 years ago saying, hey, listen, I'm a young person. I can't force myself to save. He said he lived with a roommate for 11 years, his whole professional career. He wanted his own apartment, but he couldn't bring himself to do it because he was saving so much money. Said he was frugal to the chagrin of his friends and family. So I don't know exactly what I said. I'm sure I said, Andrew, spend some money. Yeah. You're a working professional. Pull the trigger. You're not in college anymore. So he said, I took Ben's advice, gave us an update. Said he moved into his own apartment in 2023 for $2,500 a month, then moved out of the apartment after 11 months and traveled across Europe for 6 weeks on a sabbatical. Now he's exploring different places to stay using Airbnb, still driving his old car from the 1990s, so he didn't give up completely on his frugal ways, but he said, I was right. Ben was right. I had a high savings rate and sacrificed 12 years of my life. So now he's invested. He's got another question for us. We're going to answer maybe next week or something, but way to go, Andrew.
He was also offended by me suggesting that he was driving an old Volvo station wagon. That's not what he was driving, apparently. So
okay.
On that episode.
Okay. Not an Accord either, which would be my choice, but
right.
Way to go. Especially the people who spend too much. Some people have the opposite. They spend too much, but this person, he was saving too much, and then he changed his ways.
Yeah,
which is hard
and
to
good
do.
on him, for taking your advice.
Yeah, way to go. All right, let's get into some questions.
All right, up first today, we have a question from James. On this week's episode, you guys mentioned that nobody uses the 4% rule. I've been tracking my annual expenses for the last few years and multiplying it by 25 as a ballpark figure of what I need to retire. Is this not a good way to estimate? If not, what do you suggest? Sorry if this is a dumb question, but yes, I've read this on a lot of blogs.
Okay, let's bring in our special guest host today. Jill on Money is here.
Hello.
Jill Schlesinger.
Hello, guys.
All right.
Hey.
Listen, I'm sure there are some people who actually follow the 4% rule religiously, but certainly not as many people as financial researchers would assume. So what do you think? This is like such a squishy question. It's a very important one for people. Like, how much do I actually need to retire? But one that I think a lot of people don't actually know until they get to the day where they say, I'm fine. I can do it. So how do you think through this framework?
I'm old, and so I grew up with the 4% rule sort of drilled into me. And I think, it's weird because we've just gone through this inflationary spike. So it used to be when I would say to people about 4%, it sounds great, but what if things go wrong? What if there's more inflation than you would expect, or your assets don't perform as you would expect, or I don't know, just something weird happens, and they'd look at you like you're crazy. So now at least we have the experience of yes, we can have inflation, and it can happen at the wrong time for people. I guess in my experience, when I was an advisor a million years ago, people wanted some thumbnail guidance, right? And
True.
I think that that's what the 4% rule is meant to do, which is just give me some framework so I don't blow through all my money.
Yeah, it gives you a baseline, right? Somewhere to start. You can go above or below that, but that's a good starting point. I agree.
And so I'm a wimp, and I also very much am worried about bad things happening. So when I look ahead and I say, okay, well, what do we not do when we approach retirement, when we're looking for a funding goal? We probably don't have a great handle on how much we really need to spend. And Ben, I know that like you just had a conversation with somebody where you're like, okay, spend a little bit more, live a little bit more in your life. And then I sometimes will have conversations with people who are like that, where they've been very frugal their whole lives, and they come to retirement and they go nuts in the first few years of retirement, right? It's like the unleashing. So what I try to say is you have to decide which is the mistake you're more comfortable making. Should I undershoot it? Should I withdraw a little bit less money from my portfolio every year, maybe 3 or 3.5%, and use a higher inflation rate than most people imagine? And worst case scenario is that I end up with more money late in life. Or do I want to live a little bit more today, make the mistake, and maybe run the risk of not looking great in my 80s? I'm the former. I like to be a little bit more conservative. So I leave it to you, Ben. I don't really believe in the 4% rule, but I feel much more comfortable saying like, let me look at 3.5%. That feels more comfy for me.
All right, you're the glasses half empty today. I'm going to be the glasses half full. So I always tell people it's worth pointing out that the 4% rule is not set in stone, but it is a conservative rule by nature. It's trying to get you to the place where you just don't run out of money. It's the worst case scenario. So I think the main point is be flexible. Like I want to look at the other side. So Michael Kitces did one of my favorite studies on this, and he took a 60-40 portfolio, and he said over 30 years, he used every year as a starting point that you could. So John, throw up the chart here. So he did this 4% rule and shows all the different range of outcomes you can get using all these different assumptions. And he said, on average, using the 4% rule historically, which, past is not prologue, so that's the caveat, on average, a retiree finished after 30 years nearly tripling their original principal after taking out all of their 4% spending each year and adjusting it for inflation. So he's saying that the 10% of the time you did end up with less than you started with, but most of the time you actually end up with more using the 4% rule. John, you can do a chart off. So I think the biggest thing here is take a little Jill and a little Ben and balance. And if things are better than expected in that scenario, like, hey, things are way better than I could have thought of. I didn't get a bear market right when I retired. Maybe you can turn the dial up and spend more. If things are worse and you retire right into the teeth of a 30% bear market, maybe you dial things back. And that's the point, is that you can't just follow the spreadsheet. You have to be flexible and say, if things are going really well, I'm going to give more to charity, or I'm going to go on more vacations or give to my kids or whatever it is. And if things are really bad, maybe we cut back that year and we do one vacation instead of two.
And can I just pop in one extra thing? Because I love that idea of like, be flexible, know yourself, and be realistic about what are we really going to spend? Because sometimes people will run numbers and they'll look at it and they're like, well, I really won't spend 12 grand a month. I'm sure it'll be 10. Use the number you actually think you're going to be spending. And that's probably the number you're going to be spending. It's not going to be, I don't know a ton of people in the first 10 or 15 years of retirement, presuming they're healthy and everything's good, that all of a sudden they want to be like, yeah, I want to pull back. No, you want to relax. You want to enjoy yourself. You want to have some fun. And you want to have some fun today, and you want to have some fun in the future.
The Ben and Jill 60-40 portfolio. How's that?
I like that.
Lean a little Ben, but you got a little Jill for just in case.
Just in case.
Like
right.
1% my portfolio?
No, won't lead, Duncan. Next one.
Okay, up next we have a question from Ryan. My dad and I, this is a cool question. My dad and I have been listening to your podcast for over a year now and love it. I'm currently a minor league baseball player and have about an hour of free time every day where I feel like I could work online or make some money somehow. I've looked into rental properties but don't want to add to the stress of playing baseball. I feel that I'm productive and capable of making money online somehow, and I'm super interested in investing. So I was wondering if you guys had any ideas on how to make extra income with about 7 to 8 hours of work a week.
This is interesting, especially for a minor league baseball
He
player
didn't
whose
say what
schedule
kind
is...
of position he plays.
I know. All right, what do you guys think? Let's just guess what his position is.
Well, he mentioned stress, so maybe he's like a relief pitcher.
Oh,
That's
I thought
about
he
as
was going
stressful as
to.
it
I thought he was
gets.
going to say a catcher.
Okay. Yeah.
If he's a pitcher, he's got
managing.
even more time for side hustles on his hands because he's not pitching every day.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
I
so
started
not a
my
pitcher.
blog as a side hustle that turned into a real job with a new firm. But I think it's probably harder than you think to make money on the internet for most people. I would say the place that I would start is do something that you're actually interested in. And don't start with, I'm going to make so much money doing this. Start with, here's something I'm interested in. And if it ends up making me more money, then good. If not, I'm at least doing something that interests me.
Yeah, I'm thinking like, you have such a great credential. How can we use this credential? right? So I'm going to make this up. Let's say you live in Toledo because you play for the Toledo Mud Hens. Did you like how I just flipped that out of here?
That was nice. Midwest. I like
okay.
it.
So, and let's say that there's like some part of your town where people will pay to have you coach their kids, their little snotty kids, and they'll pay good money. And maybe that's the way you can leverage. I know it sort of feels, it probably may be like, oh, I want to do something with my stocks or this or that. But like really the best and easiest path is to use a talent or a credential you have and leverage that for a few hours a week. This is probably not that hard for you. And maybe it would actually make you feel really good about the fact that where you are. And of course, just in case you were thinking about how to invest, and don't spend 7 or 8 hours day trading. That would be my only caution.
Okay, as someone who has kids playing sports now and getting into like the travel side of things, your answer is perfect because parents will pay anything, and they're all delusional, and they think their child is going to be great. So whatever you're going to charge for your baseball training, like double it, because parents will pay it. Like I'm going to make your son the best little league pitcher or catcher or right fielder that there is. That's a perfect answer, right?
Right. It's going to be
Yes.
awesome. And look, here's my credential. I'm in it. I'm in the game.
And if he wants to do it online, guess what? I'm going to give tips online, right?
Oh,
to
yeah.
Yeah.
show me your swing. Up, your right foot is move it up a few inches. Like he could do it that way if he wanted to. But yes, I think that's a great idea.
All right. We're all in.
Yeah,
I'm in.
I did a baseball camp at High Point University when I was a kid. It was a lot of fun. So yeah, he could start his own little camp on the side or something.
I like it.
Very
All right.
nice.
Next question.
Okay. Up next, we have my wife and I are 45. We have 2 young kids and both have special needs and are very settled in a private school that is helping them greatly. However, we live 50 minutes from the school and the commute is greatly affecting them, so we are looking to move closer to the school. I'm fully aware that now is not a great time to move. We locked in a 2.75% rate during COVID and have $300,000 left on our house valued at $650,000. The next house would be around the $1 million mark with rates over 6%. To make things more complicated, for vocational/schooling reasons, we will likely only own this home for 5 years at the most. This sounds complicated.
This is a complex one.
Um,
Wait, you got more, right, Duncan? Yeah.
Oh yeah. For context, I earn we have a lot of long ones today. For context, I earn $500,000 per year. We have $700,000 in a brokerage account and the equity in our current home. What is the optimal strategy from a down payment and term perspective, given the short time we will own the property, the current rates, and the flexibility we have with the potential use of our brokerage money? We could do a minimum down payment to keep building gains in our brokerage account, or we could liquidate our brokerage and put down a large down payment with a very short-term arm with a very high monthly to potentially pay it off in the 5 years we would own it. Is there a better strategy to get this done? What am I missing here? I've heard many conflicting opinions from financial advisors.
Okay, so this is a very complex situation. So they're trying to think through 2 options, right? They know they have to move. They know it's not ideal to move, but they have to. This is for their kids. They're going to do anything they can. And they want to know big down payment or more flexibility. I think there's a third one here. Because my rule is typical. Ben's rule of housing is if you're not living it for a minimum of 7 to 10 years, because of all the frictions involved, you have to pay to buy and sell, it's probably not worth it. So why wouldn't they consider renting?
yes.
Right?
Yes, my man. I literally like rent.
We're in the same
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, if you think you're going to end up moving back to the area 50 minutes away, maybe you rent your house and rent in the new place, or sell it, collect your equity, and rent for 5 years. But like to go out and buy another home in this environment, I think you would be nuts.
and then turn around and sell it in 4 or 5 years.
No, not worth it.
Right.
So
yeah. Hold on to the old one if you want, and rent it out for the 2.75 rate. Rent a new house closer to the school, and then you can still keep building the equity.
Yeah. Just one other thing, because they said 2 special needs kids. I hope, and maybe you have done this already just because you're in this world, but I presume you've done estate planning and that you're very clear that a special needs trust must be established so that when your kids inherit your assets, they are not precluded from receiving benefits. So I know that that's what you've done already, but just in case you haven't, don't forget to do that.
Right. Sounds like he's talking to financial advisors and
Yeah.
getting conflicting opinion. But I guess the other thing, I would prefer if they're say, well, too bad, I'm not renting. There's no rentals in our area that'll fit our family. I'm going to buy. So what should I do? I would say I prefer the flexibility. I don't know. I don't like the idea of totally wiping out the brokerage account.
I agree.
To put it in this illiquid asset that you're going to sell in a few years and you could lose some money on potentially. So I would keep the flexibility either way.
I
think renting
agree.
is the most flexible approach.
Absolutely. Renting is freedom.
And they mentioned conflicting opinions, but this isn't like a right or wrong thing, right? So I mean, there's
No, this
always
is
gonna be
right or
different.
wrong. Ben is right.
Okay,
The advisor who's wrong.
you're
No,
right.
I think what's funny is though, I've gotten conflicting opinions. What kind of advisors are these?
And
that
why
they
are you
didn't-
asking
they-
anyone other than Ben?
No, but I'm just saying that, like, what kind of advisors have not raised renting as a possibility? Or maybe they have, like, you're right, Ben. Like, maybe he's like, no way, I have to live somewhere. But I don't know. You can rent anywhere. You'll find something. I feel very confident.
True. All right. Next question.
All right, up next we have a question from Joe. This is a two-parter too. I've been investing for almost 5 years now and have had an automatic deposit of $25 to $50 set up for each Friday into my brokerage account. I also put all income tax refunds straight into this brokerage account. Doing this, I've built up a nice $25,000. My partner and I are only 27 years old, and we do very well for ourselves. I've been slowly building up positions in various companies by purchasing stock slices and almost never sell, not trying to time the market. I'm a CPA and have been working in financial due diligence for a few years, so I trust myself to be able to know what's important on a company's financial statements. My thesis is to buy stock in companies that hold significant market share in industries that have a high cost of entry and companies that play a large part in everyday life. What tips and tricks do you have for me? Should, should I be more willing to offload positions in quality companies when I'm up big? For example, I currently have multiple positions that are up 50+%, not to brag. I always reinvest all dividends and just let quality companies do their thing, even during downswings in stock price.
This question was the human condition. Part 1 was extremely confident. I know what I'm doing. Listen, I know everything about a financial statement. Part 2 was, wait, what the hell do I do here?
Wait, and is there a great Wizard of Oz behind that curtain that can show me tips
Yes.
and tricks? I
First
love
of
that
all, I want to
idea.
give
The answer is
Joe.
yes.
I think
Here we
this
are.
is from Joe. I want to give him credit. So he said he does. I always say for young people, he's saying he does $25 to $50 a week, starting small. Yeah, I totally applaud that. I think that's the way to go. You start small and you build up. And he's saying, like, I've been doing this for a few years and it worked. And he's got a nice $25,000 in the brokerage account. I don't personally have any tips or tricks, except that you're 27 and eventually you're going to be humbled by the market. So I would just prepare for that. Sounds like you have a pretty good process, know what you're doing. I think it's much easier to buy stocks than it is to know when to sell them.
That's
Right?
it.
It's
That's
very
right. That's absolutely great advice.
Very easy to come up with an idea to buy a stock. This thing looks great. It's beaten down, or it's gone up a lot, or the company is outperforming, or I use the products, whatever it is. Knowing when to sell is way, way harder than knowing when to buy.
So smart. I would just say this, Joe, because you are CPAs. Also, one of the problems you're going to have is that you are a CPA and you're going to say, oh, if I sell this, I have to pay the tax.
Ah, right.
And it's going to bum you out. So one idea might be, and I'm going to presume that you're sort of, because it sounds like you're sort of on the right track. So I'm going to presume when someone is doing something like this, that they're already maxing out their retirement account contributions, right? Like either you work for a company and you're putting money in the 401k, you got a Roth 401k, you got a Roth IRA. I'm also going to think, I think that one of the ways that you can become a little bit better of a seller is to create a stock account with an IRA or Roth IRA, because I think you stop yourself from selling sometimes because of taxes, even though that's silly because tax rates are pretty low and capital gains rates are low. But this would be no excuse. And you could say to yourself, I got 25 grand. I have $10,000 in gains. I'm going to look at each position. I'm going to sell half. I'm going to move on. I'm going to add to the portfolio. I just think people are hesitant to do that in taxable accounts, and I get why. But I just think that if you want to try to be a better seller, sometimes it's better to do your experimenting in a Roth account.
Yes, and I also like the idea of I have my set it and forget it portfolio over here for the 401k or
Yeah.
the Roth IRA. Leave that alone. do your stock picking over here in the brokerage, and then you can also compare.
Yeah.
Like, am I actually adding any value here, or am I just doing this for fun and entertainment purposes?
Which is fine.
Yeah, that's the point. But just admit it to yourself. Like, I'm trying to beat the market and I'm going to have alpha or whatever, or I'm doing this because I like following companies. I'm a CPA. I like following financial statement analysis. If I don't beat the market, I don't care. I'm still going to keep doing this. I would just be honest with yourself about why you're doing this in the first place.
Right. And by the way, if something happens to cause you to feel anxious about markets overall, then if you're going to do your experimenting with market timing, even though you say you're a buy and hold person, which is always easier to do when markets are rising, just don't mess around with the real money. This is your fun money. You can do that, not the real money.
I always say that buying is easy. The holding part, that's hard. That's very hard.
Do either of you have like a limit where if you hit that percentage gain on an individual holding, you start trimming, or do you just kind of wing it? That's what I think is so hard about this, right? Is everyone has like a different opinion about, start taking some gains at 50%.
Duncan, I am so bad at stock picking. I've never hit my ceiling before.
Duncan, I don't own an individual stock, to be clear.
Not to brag.
But when but just to be clear, I don't. But when I was a trader, I did it differently because I was an options trader. So for me, it was about the relative value of one position versus another position. And then selling is quite easy because you're like, wow, this, like, technically, when you go through and you look at the statistics, this is a bad position to hold versus this next position. So it's a little bit easier when you're looking at derivatives and how you unwind that. Yeah. And I always stopped out. I always
that could be good sell discipline for stocks too. You say, I'm going to own 10 stocks, and when I want to buy a new one, it's got to be a better idea than the one that's currently in the portfolio. Something like that.
I like that.
That'd be good. Yeah.
Yeah, because the worst feeling I've experienced, honestly, is not stocks that you buy that just go down, but stocks that you buy that go up a lot. You hold them and then they go down. And then you're like, oh, cool. I could have made a lot of money on that, and now I'm at a loss. And
I will tell you, just like dealing with people and their money, I think what you realize is that people become attached to stocks. And as somebody who is working in an organization where the stock price, because of the Archegos crazy trading scheme that we saw, Paramount Global, the CBS stock went up close to 100, and now people are going to be so happy to get out at 15. The inability to sell something that you feel some attachment to is really, really tough.
All right.
That makes
question.
Sense. All right. Last but not least, we have a question from Caleb. Longtime listener and second-time emailer. My wife and I are 35, and we have 1.1 million in retirement accounts, invested 95% in S&P 500 index funds and 5% in the FLIN ETF. I'm not familiar
I had to look
with
that one up, Duncan. That is an India fund.
Oh, okay.
Nice,
wow.
nice run.
So we're all stocks here. Yep.
Okay. I'm wondering if we have enough invested to stop contributions and still be able to retire comfortably at 60 years old. We live in our long-term house and have 2 kids under 4. We make $220,000 in combined income and would like $10,000 a month during retirement, not future inflation adjusted.
Okay, so this is first
Can
of
you
all
explain that last part? I don't quite understand what they mean, not future inflation adjusted.
I think they're
in
saying
today's dollars.
Yeah, today's dollars. So first of all, nice job. Mid-30s, already have $1 million portfolio. 25 years until the retirement date. They have a high income. They have a spending goal in retirement. Like they're well on their way. They're already winning. Hey, let's just let the compounding do it. So I actually created some charts here, Jill. I know you're taking notes. John, let's do the first one. So I did some back of the envelope stuff here. So I took their $1.1 million portfolio and I said, okay, 4% return, 6% return, 8% return going forward. And we get almost $3 million, almost $5 million, and almost $8 million. So pretty good. That over 25 years, if that's your returns going forward, you're in a pretty good place. So 4% return, you get close to your $10,000 in spending. I didn't adjust this for inflation, but so even if you get 6, you're probably pretty well there adjusted for inflation. So they're pretty much on track if they didn't save another cent. My point is, why not give yourself a little wiggle room? Because you have the kids that are very young. Plans may change. Maybe you want to retire earlier. So let's do another one. So I said, what if they just save 10% of their income? They're saving $20,000 a year. Now, same return assumptions. We're talking almost $4 million, almost $6 million, and over $9 million. So 8% return. They keep their money in stocks because they have aggressive allocation, and they take that 1.1 million and they save 10% of their income going forward, and I don't need to adjust that for inflation, just 20 grand a year for the next 25 years, and they get $9 million. Obviously, life doesn't always work out like a spreadsheet. We know this. It'd be nice if life worked out this way, but it doesn't happen linearly. But my point is, life never works out like the assumptions in a retirement spreadsheet. So why not give yourself a little bit of wiggle room? Why completely turn off the spigot of spending or saving when you could at least give yourself a buffer?
Yeah, and I'm wondering, like, is there some idea that you want to save for college for your kids? Is that why? Is it just like we think we're over saving for retirement and we have other things we want to do? That's a different question, right? But I agree with you, Ben. There's no reason to sort of shut it down. First of all, if you're making 220, you have to at least put into retirement plans up to your match, right? So that's like the easiest thing you can do. But I love the idea of saying, like, we did a heavy lift. Maybe we want to take some of that money, spend it a little bit more freely, put it into a 529 account for the kids, whatever that case may be. But the thing that's really weird is that you can sort of over save, right, for your retirement. That's fine. But if you over save, meaning that like you just put a little bit of extra money in a brokerage account, you can still spend it. But to Ben's point,
True.
You're giving yourself some wiggle room. So you can save some in retirement, some in brokerage, some in 529 plan, and then you're really giving yourself lots of opportunity. I wonder if, though, they're really just having a hard time figuring out how to not be really aggressive savers.
It could be, because they've got a 7-figure portfolio at 35. So
I know. So
they're in the top 1% or whatever of 30-year-olds. But, I mean, the personal finance example people always give, like, hey, if you save from 25 to 35 and never save again versus the person who starts saving at 40, like, these people are that example. They did it. And they're trying to, like, they're seeing, can we actually get off this ride? But I think just to your point, like, take the easy stuff or build up your taxable account that you can then, take out if you want to.
yeah,
But
you
why
can do
stop?
whatever you want. You don't have to, and you don't have to kill yourself. You know what's
turn
funny?
turn the dial down a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. I just think that people are like a lot of the people who are obviously watching this kind of a show or tuning into all the compound shows. You're focused on your money, right? I get it. But to Ben's point, as we started this show, to talk to the guy who's like, I've had roommates for 11 years, and like, it's okay to have some more balance in your life. We're not saying go spend every single dollar you have, but it's also okay to enjoy where you are and to have some fun along the way. And the people who really start to feel like, oh my God, I have to stop this craziness, are often the people who have caused their own craziness. Like, you don't have to put that pressure on yourself. You might be in great shape and you can like take your foot off the pedal a little bit, but you should also understand that there's so many different twists and turns your life may take. Hey, maybe you wish you, if you stop saving 100%, maybe you have a great opportunity, go into business for yourself, and you wish you had the money saved to do it, but you can't. So I just like the idea of building lots of options for yourselves. That's, to me, is like, that's freedom.
Yes, I agree. I think we have one bonus question here because someone heard Jill was coming on the show today. This is on Twitter. What does it say, Duncan?
It says, who should do a Roth conversion? I realize there's a lot of considerations, but who's best suited?
Pretty much everybody. I love Roth IRAs. I love Roth, the whole Roth contract. The conversion, the very best person to do a Roth conversion is somebody whose tax bracket is temporarily lower. So let's say that Duncan and I are married. Hi, baby. How you doing? And I get shit canned from CBS, right, in this year, and we go down to one income. This may be then a great year for me to convert a traditional account into a Roth because our tax bracket has dropped. So that's the ideal person to do a conversion when your tax bracket has dropped temporarily. And the other people who are really interested in doing conversions are people often in their 50s where they're like, hey, you know what? I need a glide path here. I'm going to make less money in my 50s. Maybe I took a different job, an off-ramp job, and I start converting in my 50s to my 60s so I can really minimize those required minimum distributions. But I love the Roth. It is really the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Yes. And the easy answer, too, is just if you are out of the income threshold and want to do the backdoor, that makes sense, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Also, I have to share in the chat, Tenzin said that you have a CEO laugh, Jill.
I do?
I don't know what that means, but it sounds
I was
good.
never a CEO. But I was the chief. What was my title? Hold on a second. I can't remember what my title was when I owned my company, but I didn't have the CEO title. I think I was the chief investment officer.
I think that means you have a very powerful laugh. Is that it?
I think so.
I have a broadcast laugh. You guys
right.
are the best.
Thank you for coming to the show. Check out Jill on Money. How often are you on CBS? Where can everyone find you?
I don't know.
Everywhere?
Just go to my website, jillonmoney.com. I was on this morning. That's why I look a little tired now. Sorry, dudes.
It's okay.
But I
Big
do
day
it.
for inflation. I'm sure everyone wanted to hear your thoughts on inflation today.
Yeah, big day. Happy days are coming right around the corner.
Possibly.
September, Ben? September rate cut or not? Put it out there.
Good to me. Yep.
Sounds good to me, too.
All right. New
Same.
Compound and Friends tomorrow. Great guest. Perfect timing for this kind of chatter we're having on inflation and rates. Email us, askthecompoundshow@gmail.com, and we'll see you next time.
And thanks everyone who tuned in on Twitter. This was our first time ever going live to Twitter. So thank you.
Didn't break?
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I don't think
All
so.
right.
Yeah. See you, everyone.